Welcome to the Eternal ROI Podcast, where we share the real stories of workplace transformation. And now, here are your hosts, Will Stewart and Chris Patton.
Welcome to the Eternal ROI Podcast. Good to have everybody watching and listening along. I'm your host, Will Stewart, joined as always by Chris Patton, CEO of His Way at Work. Hey, Chris.
Will, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Fantastic.
Man, I'm excited today. We have, so all of my prior career, when I was in the car business, I would introduce myself as a car dealer and a Christian.
Right.
And people would look at me funny.
Does that exist?
We're going to introduce two lawyers.
Oh, man.
That are also Christians.
It's a miracle.
Right? It's fantastic. So I only say it, guys, because car dealers were one notch below attorneys on this trust scale, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a notch or two.
I'm not sure that you have that in the right order. But
I'm not sure either. But anyway, it's Kevin Brady and Russell Guest. And man, I'm excited to have these guys on the show, hear about what it's like to do law in a law firm for an eternal impact. So
I'm so excited. Yeah, it's been great getting to know you guys even before the show, and excited for people to learn your story. So for those who don't know who you are, give us that 30-second spill. And who are you and what do you do?
So I'm Kevin Brady. I'm a native of Greenville, so I've been here my whole life. I'm a real estate attorney. So me and Russell started this practice back in 2005. And when we first started, it was just me and him, and I think he had one paralegal, and since that time, it's just completely exploded on us. So past couple of years have been really, really good to us, and it's been a journey. So.
My name is Russell Guest, and I'm a South Carolina boy, born and raised in this state, and been here in Greenville for about 30 years. And started practicing law probably about 25 years ago, and then Kevin and I started in 2005, like you said. So I do personal injury work, and Kevin focuses on the real estate side of the practice. So those are our two areas of practice that we do.
That's awesome. So when you combined your forces together, was the plan all along to grow big and get to something big? Did you want to just kind of keep it small and boutique? What was the goal?
Well, the goal back in 2005 was something small and boutique, and it was. That's seriously gotten away from us now.
Congratulations,
I
guess.
guess so. Well, we have 4 locations now, all in the upstate, and about 50 employees.
That's incredible.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So as you grow a company, it doesn't matter if you're a lawyer or if you're making widgets. You go from an expert in your field, you know law, but then now you have to be business owners, right? You have to be loving people. You have to be taking care of people. As you're hiring, it just gets into a big mess, right? There's a whole thing to that. As you started developing and growing your practice, what were some of the challenges you faced just in the side of just taking care of people?
Well, so we maintained at about probably 10 people for quite a long time, for probably 12 years. And in that time, so that was fairly easy to manage. Yeah. And it's only been in the last 6 years or so that it's really begun to grow and then accelerate even faster as towards the end of those years. And that's where the challenges really of business come into play. When you're able to meet with every individual, talk about every one of their individual needs, it's fairly easy from a business standpoint. And also practice law at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Do the work.
Yeah. Now it's a little bit more challenging because of the number of people and also to practice law. But that's, I would say, the business part of it is we're learning and growing at the same time. I had some prior business experience coming into this. I left law school and went into business and was in business for about 8 years. And so I brought that experience into the law firm with us. And so we had some of that background from a process standpoint, and that was helpful. But again, when you're really able to deal with every one of your people one-on-one, it's fairly easy in that stance. And to also pay very specific attention to people.
Sure.
That's fairly easy. When somebody can walk right into your office and it not be really a problem, that's easier. But now it's a little bit challenging with the organizational structures and strategies and so forth that we're employing. It's a little bit more challenging.
Yeah. So as Chris alluded, you're not just any law firm. You're combining the faith aspect in your practice as well, and that's a big part of what you do and your identity. When did that start? Was it the plan from the beginning, or is it something that came along? How'd that begin?
So that was, I guess, me and Russell both. Our kids are fairly close in age. Russell's kids are a couple years older than mine, at least his oldest daughter is. And so about the same time, maybe mid to late 30s, we're in this business and we're grinding it out every day. And it's for normal reasons that people run a business to make a profit. Yeah. And that's what we're thinking about. But at that time, with the family growing and getting into those mid 30s, I don't know if you call it a midlife crisis or not, but you start really, both of us come from a background of faith. We grew up in families of faith, but then you start wondering, well, okay, what's next, right?
Yeah.
And why are we here running this business, and what is this all about? And about that time, Russell got a business card that came across his desk, and it was from an organization called C12. And this was already on his mind. He was already thinking about it. And here comes this organization, this postcard that shows up that talks to business owners about running their business as part of their Christian faith and ministry. And so it spoke to him. He came in and says, I think I want to go do this. Right. And so he started down that journey. And that's what catapulted us. And part of what intrigued me and got me was there's a gentleman named Buck Jacobs that started C12, and he wrote a book, and in that book he has a foreword in it, and it talks about your spiritual gifts, right? And that not everybody's called to be a preacher in a pulpit, right? And it just spoke to me because I was not called to be a preacher in a pulpit.
Amen. Me either.
I was called to be I found myself as a business owner, partner with Russell in this law firm. And so, where's my mission field? Where's Russell's mission field? And that's what it spoke to. These are the people that we deal with every day, not just on Sundays, but every day. This is where we have the greatest influence. This is where we can plant our seeds. This is where we can help build the kingdom. And so that's what started us down this journey. And we didn't know what we were doing.
You're not the only one.
Yeah, that's right.
But we were excited to start down that path.
Yeah.
What was that mentality before C12? Was it, okay, the church has its own thing, the church is doing this, the pastor's doing his thing, and then I'm a businessman, I do my thing. It was that kind of the mentality. I think that's the mentality of a lot of people.
It was very much that way.
Yeah.
We were very secular in that moment. In 2005, we started and we ran it, and we separated our Sundays and our Mondays.
Yeah.
And just like we saw everyone else around us doing too, and also how we've been taught as we grew up that that's what you did.
Right.
So we didn't have any other examples of it being done really different. I'm sure there were, and there are companies, but personally, we didn't have those examples. And so I know that we were also growing on our own personal faith around that time. We had gone to a men's Bible studies together. And in that, there was this course that talked about men, and specifically speaking to men and their work, men and their relationships with their wife, men and the relationship with their children. And in the process of that, one of the commentators and people facilitating that was challenging the men to say, what is your relationship with your work in terms of who really owns that? Now, this is the truth that I know we all know here sitting, is that God owns it all.
Yeah.
And now that's an eternal truth that's been forever.
Yeah.
But we didn't know it. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
But we looked at each other and we thought about that and said, well, if that's the truth, then what do we do with that?
That's the key, Russell. It's even if you ask people, not just men, right, but people in business, does God own everything? If they're Christians, they've been around the church long, they say, well, yeah. So does he own your business? Well, yeah, right? And there's a hesitation because then here's the problem, is the whole phrase, if that's true, then.
That's right.
And it's the then that either ignore, step back from, and don't want to engage that, because if we go down that path, well, that means I've got something incumbent on me to do. And so I would tell you, people that I've run into in business, they may run their business separate from their faith. It's still morally and ethically done well, right? It's on biblical principles.
Yes.
But they haven't yet engaged or faced God's ownership and their stewardship of that business and the what then that comes after that. So it's really when you cross that line is when you registered, okay, yes, he does. Now what?
Now what?
So what does that mean?
And we chose not to ignore it.
Yes.
Yes. So we were called to say, well, Jesus is saying, what are you going to do now with that? And so we didn't know what, like Kevin just said, we didn't really know what the first steps were. And so we both of us together started praying about what that looked like and what that would mean to us and what the next steps would be. And we were hoping that, God would help reveal that. And interesting enough, that's when the card came across the desk.
Shocking.
It's amazing how God brings his resources, his leads right at the right time, right when your heart's ready.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I don't know if I'm reading too much into this, but there was a story. I showed up at the first meeting for C12. And when I got there, I pulled up and I got out of my car and my tire was flat. I mean, it was going flat and it was hissing. And I said, oh no. And I'm got to get in there for the meeting. It's going to start on time. And I said, I got a chance to make it to the tire place before my car goes all the way flat and I don't have to change it here in the parking lot. So let me try to do that. And I did. And I texted our chair and I said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to make it today. And even though I'm sorry, it had to be another time. And I'm thinking to myself, isn't that interesting? It's making a hissing sound at me like a snake.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Preventing me from going to this meeting. Eventually overcame that obstacle and made it to the meeting. And so we've been a member of C12 since 2010. So that's been a fun journey.
Yeah.
I like to go talk about what we first did, though, when we were praying together and then the card came. We were trying to decide, we've got a group of people. Clearly, we didn't hire them with their understanding that they were going to step into a business that integrated their faith in their work.
Right.
And we didn't know what that looked like. So what is our first steps that we do with all of our people? And we prayed about that. What does that look like? And so we had regular meetings on a weekly morning, like a Tuesday morning, really small, like I said, with 10 people. And we just said, well, let's just pray. We're just going to pray with them. As far to the opening of the meeting, we're going to say, has anybody got any prayer requests? Now, we told them in advance. We didn't just pop it on them. We said, listen, when we start this meeting, we're going to pray. Has anybody got objections to that? We just want to know. And if you do, then we'll work out a way to accommodate you. However, this is what we'd like to do at the beginning of our meeting, because we're talking about the business and where we are and the strategies going forward and who's taking what part and what role and how we're going to accomplish the task in front of us. So it's a real business meeting, but also we want to pray for God's favor in that. And
Since he's the owner.
Yes, since he's the owner, yes. And so that was our first. Now, we were nervous as all get out about introducing that simple step of saying a prayer. We didn't really know how it was going to be perceived, what the conversations in the back rooms might be, what that's going to look like. But we just stepped out in faith and said, okay, that's going to be our first step. And so we're going to pray. And it was received extremely well.
Just a note, okay? I'm going to pause here because there are a lot of people listening that have not yet taken that first step, right? And there is nervousness. So far, out of all the people, all the CEOs, all the business leaders we've had on this podcast, we've done a poll and 100% were nervous before that first step. 100% were unsure. How will people receive it? What will they do? Will I lose customers? Will I lose employees? All these fears coming at you, hissing. It's the step. It's just taking that first step, right? Just for a moment, take a second to describe coming out of that first meeting. Was there a conversation between the two of you of, wow, that wasn't as bad as we thought? Or do you remember that?
I think we have a feeling of relief.
Yeah. I don't specifically remember the conversation, but I'm sure we had one. And like Russell said, a relief, and now this really is okay. We really can keep doing this, and even going and digging further down into that.
Yeah, that's good. All right, keep going.
Do the employees have questions? Do they have, feedback for you, or even kind of like say, well, what's this kind of thing? Or was it just kind of more just widely accepted and, like, okay, they said we're going to do this, this is what we're going to do?
Yeah, it was really appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
There was. And then also that we were listening to them. We wanted to hear their prayers and their concerns, and we wanted to uplift whatever concerns that they had.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, that gave us more insight into who they were.
Yeah.
Because if someone's asking for prayer, it's something that's concern of theirs, on their hearts, on their minds, they're contemplating it while they're doing their work. That's in the back of their mind or in the front of their mind. And so that's where they really felt like we were starting to engage them even at a deeper level. So that was helpful.
That's awesome.
It also helped their coworkers to relate to them as well.
Oh.
So, their coworkers, not just us, but their coworkers gets to really get to understand, who Chris and Will are, right?
Yeah.
And
it explains
what their concerns are.
Yeah, explains some of the behavior, right? They've been off a little bit lately, and now I know why. My goodness.
Their mom's in the hospital.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's incredible how that's a launching pad to just see the humanness in someone. And,
That's right.
And that there's, we all carry stuff to work every day. We bring our whole selves to work.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that was happening. We talk about that. We can travel on down our journey, but we talk about that all the time in terms of what's happening with the people that are customers that are walking through the door and what kind of baggage they might bring in with them. They've got all kinds of concerns on their minds, and they're coming in maybe for a real estate transaction, and they're hoping to get that deal done because it's very important to them. Maybe it's they're moving their whole family into a new home, and we've started, and other things I'll talk about just in a second, but we've started to call them really transitions versus transactions, just to put people in the frame of mind that people are going through transitions in their life just like we are.
Yeah.
In every stage, whether it's our aging parents, whether it's our newborns, whether it's our growing children that are at home, whatever the issues might be, the health issues in our families, whatever they might be, we're all going through transitions even those of us sitting at the mic here, but also those our coworkers are going through that, and the people walking through the door. And we want to see them in that light, that they're just going through a transition. It could be a wonderful, happy occasion, right? Where they've got a new baby on the way and they're getting a newer house and they've got the new keys and they're excited that they get this. But it also can be a situation where there's a widower who's walking through, who's had a recent death of a spouse, and they're now transitioning to a smaller home, maybe moving away from a home that they've lived in for 40 years. That's a transition.
Yeah.
And we need to see that for who they are. We're not just pushing paper when they come in through the doors. We are really providing care and love and seeing them for the humanity that they are.
I love that, because that gets you in the mindset of ministry.
Right.
That's fantastic. So after that meeting, when you had the first prayer and the firm didn't implode and that thing, no meteor came falling down, then what?
I think the next step, Russell can correct me, but I think the next step was we actually, through the C12, getting ideas from other companies, we employed a company chaplain to come in and to just, we started our Tuesday morning business meetings with that chaplain and doing just a quick devotion, and he would do the prayer and praises for that day. And then he would just walk around and he would not go in there and say, hey, can I teach you about God and Jesus? He came in
lay
and
hands
said,
on you.
That's right. Yeah. He would come in and say, hey, Will, tell me about what's going on with you. Anything I can do for you, help you with. Just
build relationship.
That's right. Did you watch that Clemson game Saturday?
Yeah.
Just build the relationships, and then people would get comfortable, and then they'd start laying out those burdens that are on them, and then they would get comfortable and just start. It would open conversations and opportunities to spread the gospel.
So, in addition to that, Kevin, what what fruit did you guys see from relieving of burdens or employees that were engaging the chaplain in a way that would then also improve their operating at work, right? Have you seen an improvement in the organization, not just in individual gospel progress?
Well, we're all people, and we all have feelings and the relationships, the bonds that bring us together. A lot of environments, the culture changed dramatically. So no longer are you just a coworker, but now you're really a family, and you're sharing those burdens of your family life and what's happening to you and the experiences that you're going through, and it just made the entire environment stronger. And people, we spend the most of our time at work, and now they understand their coworkers and the things that they're going through in life.
Yeah.
And it just makes the environment, the culture even better.
It's good.
So part of that journey, if we continue down, was just we got the chaplain, and we were doing things we felt, but cruising. We were doing some things, but we were just cruising along too. Mm-hmm. And we started this caring team that was, since we only had 10 or 12 people, then everybody was a member of the team, including Kevin and I. And as we were doing that, it was a positive experience. We were clearly looking to how we might be able to care better, love better on the employees that were there, and help them, support them in ways that they might come up with as we dream about those things, but also them and their families and whatever concerns that they're going through, and then also the broader community. Mm-hmm. So that's where we were working towards those ends, and Kevin and I were in those meetings, and we would bring in lunch, and we would have these caring team meetings once a month. And in the process of that, we've learned, however, that it's not best to have Kevin and I in these meetings because they would always look to us for approval of a particular idea. And if it costs a little bit of money, then they were clearly looking to us to try to approve this. And even though we tried to say, here's a budget for the caring team, here's what that looks like, it still was because we were in that meeting. That was part of the problem. Mm-hmm. So we, and fast forward to about 2 years ago, we have now begun a more formal, structured way of a caring team, having employed his work to come in and do that. And we had a chaplain now. Just to back up a second, we did hire a in-house chaplain. So we have one who's there at least 2 days, full days a week. And that's been a very positive experience for us. And that person leads our devotions on Tuesday mornings. And we'll talk more about that in a moment, what else that person does. But also he leads the caring team. So he's our caring ministry person. But also we have backed out of that meeting. So we're not in that at all. They do have a budget. They did. And they do have wonderful, incredible ideas that they work through every day and every month. And so we could talk a little bit more about that, but it's really become a real good structure of its own to deliver care when we can't, right? So there's 50 employees, and it's impossible for Kevin and I to get out and do that individually. We do take time to speak to every individual, but it's impossible for us to be able to know every individual as well as we need to, or as much as we'd like to. Yeah. And so this particular team has like 7 people on it, and they have on their own come up with this, and that's the thing, that's the beauty of it, right? So it's got the structure, and they're doing all these things all by themselves, figuring out how to love best on the people around them, and then their coworkers. And so they've now divided up where they have each about 7 employees that they are now decentralizing. How can I pay attention to those 7? And each one of them are doing that. And I was in my particular workspace, and I'm working with a paralegal of mine, and in through the door comes some flowers for this paralegal. And I was thinking, okay, well, what are these about? And this is her birthday, so she's getting flowers from her caring team liaison who knows that about her, who cares for her, and knows even particularly what kind of flowers she likes.
Wow.
And they come from the very place that she says, oh, I love that group, and they do such beautiful. And as she started tearing up, right, feeling that she felt loved, she felt understood, cared for, and it was just a set of flowers that came to her desk. And it was so simple, but that person knew that about her. And that's what's happening now, is that they're doing all that they can to try to understand and to know the individuals and to love on them in that way.
I love that.
Fantastic.
That caring team is such an important part of having a caring culture. And it's creating that operating system. And that's something that His Way at Work does really, really well. It's the secret sauce of, when you have that team leader and then you have the people that are the committee that have oversight of the budget and have the authority to do what they need to do, it takes all that burden off of you guys. And that's just an incredible thing of just letting you set the parameters, say, this is kind of how far we want you guys to go. This is the boundaries, and then just letting people go. And they're infinitely creative.
Yes.
Infinitely creative, much more than we would be.
Yeah.
And how much fun is that? You get to go in a room and take part of the company's money
Yeah.
and love on people.
That's right.
Yeah.
Love on your employees, love on their families, and love on the community.
Yeah.
And you just get to sit around and decide, how do we love on people today?
And that employee that received the flowers, the
Love that.
paralegal, didn't just feel loved by that one caring team member that arranged it, but she felt cared for by the entire company, right?
That's right.
In your office, felt cared for and loved by you, and you didn't even know it was happening.
Right. Didn't even know what was happening. Yeah. We do recognize birthdays on a more global basis with everybody, which is a story in itself, because in staff meetings, we do that. It's just another example. It's just more than just birthdays, but there's staff meetings we have every Tuesday. So like today's Tuesday. And so we had a staff meeting this morning. And what that looks like is that we start off with just a social time. And we're trying to, it starts at 8:45, but people are gathering around like at 8:30. And we're encouraging that. So we have, like I said, offices in Spartanburg now, and Easley, and here in Greenville. And we're telling people, close down your office. Come to the staff meeting. Yes, we do want to help you make it there financially, and so it's not a burden on you. So we pay the mileage for them to come. And we want them to be there. And that office on Tuesday morning in Spartanburg doesn't open until 11 o'clock.
Wow.
Right.
And it has those hours posted.
Wow.
Now, I'm sure that there are people that are customers of ours that are going, well, I'd like to have your services during those hours. Our hope and prayer, though, is that if we're doing the things that we're doing during those hours, though, that we're going to be able to serve them better during those other hours.
Amen. Yes.
And I really believe that that's happening. And so we have that social time, and then 8:45 starts with typically our chaplain, although we do have guest devotion people come in, and even some of our staff lead devotions too, and prayer. So it's a devotion and a prayer, and then we move into a business segment.
Mm-hmm.
And this morning, some of the added features, we have segments, right? So once a month, the caring team member gets up there and tells, this is what's happening with the caring team, so that globally everybody knows. Now, we don't have a room big enough for everybody, so we have the front lobby, and it's everybody brings their own chair, right? So it's a bring your own chair meeting, and it's just a space where it's big enough for everybody to crowd into.
Almost.
That's true. So, and then there's rows of people, and it's almost like there's pews going back through there.
Yeah.
But as we're getting prayers and praises, it's really fun to see all of the participation that's happening. We have a number, and the prayers and praises now, that's going on for
Half an hour.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes. I mean,
Wow.
it started as the devotion with the prayer and praise was going to take 20 minutes of that first section. And now it is morphed into a 15-minute devotional, followed by at least half an hour of prayer and praise.
And y'all having church.
Oh, yeah.
it is quite something.
It is.
Love that.
It is really special. I invite you to come. on a
love
Tuesday
to.
morning and to see that
As a guest, not a client.
as a guest, unless you have a real estate transaction.
Yeah, that I'd be glad to do.
Yeah, so that is a very positive event, and we want everybody to be there so that they can participate in that. And it's something we talked earlier about being in person and having that a connection with other people. Not everyone can make it every time, but we are strongly encouraging that. And so some people do join by a Zoom, and so it's not that we're saying you have to be there every time or else. But most, we have this morning probably 45 out of 50 that were there.
Wow.
So
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That must be exciting for you because you love these people, even though you're not able to necessarily spend intimate time with each one of them, but you love them. You want them to be fulfilled in their job, and then to see them all together and then see this thing that's taken off, and that's without your, you started it, but then it's just gone further and than you could ever imagine. I'm sure that's incredibly fulfilling. How do you hire though? When you have someone who's they're probably, maybe they're paralegal, they're used to what some kind of law firm would possibly be. What's that conversation like when you first start talking to them, and then when they come up to the first business meeting, and they're like, "Whoa, we've never had 45 minutes of."
Well, we obviously don't discriminate based on their religious beliefs.
Yeah.
But we do have a mission statement and our core values, and it clearly expresses that at least the business owners of this company are Christians, and that we carry out our beliefs through our business. And so we typically show them those cards, and we just say, hey, we are a Christian-ran company. You don't have to agree with that. We just ask that you don't actively work against us. That's it. You don't have to participate in the caring team. You don't have to participate in the devotionals. We will accommodate you not to participate in those religious-based events that we have. And we're not going to treat you any different than any other employee.
Keep a record of it.
That's right. Yeah. No. And then we invite them, to come to our Tuesday morning meetings. If they're in consideration and we feel strongly enough that we might hire them, we'll have them come into that Tuesday morning meeting. Yeah. And that's an opportunity. It's an opportunity not just for our staff to get to meet them, but they get to meet us and really understand who we are.
Taste and see.
That's right. And they get to decide, because they're deciding just like we're deciding. Do they want to work here? And do we want them to work here? And so it's just a great opportunity for all that.
Great idea.
No, that's really wise, because you don't want a surprise.
No.
You want it to be
side.
very clear. Yes, they know exactly what they're getting into, and whether they have your same level of beliefs or they're even Christian at all. You want them to be able to understand, like, this is the environment that I'm coming into, and whether they're comfortable.
Yes.
Some people, one of the arguments against practicing your faith in your work is the legal aspect. People are anxious about that. They say, if I talk about my faith at work, then suddenly I'm going to be sued. There's all this fear that's around and swirling. What's your take on that? I know you're lawyers, but you're not lawyers necessarily in that field. But I'm sure you've researched it, talked to friends, worked on it yourself to figure out where those boundaries were. But what would you say to someone who said, legally I probably can't do this, I need to just take a step back?
Well, it's clearly legal. We have not been challenged with that particular issue from a legal aspect, but we have researched it and we've looked at it, and we are comfortable with the fact that it's something that a private organization clearly can do. And more, we're seeing even in the public space where there's governmental entities that there's really more that an individual can do in practicing their faith within the government space as well. Then typically government has gone too far in one direction to prevent that. And that's being challenged, as we see right now in the Supreme Court all the time, successfully so.
Yeah.
But in a private space, clearly you can do that. Now, the problem becomes if you begin to treat them differently than others that might not practice your faith. And we're not doing that. But we have on our website our faith statement, or not our faith statement, but our mission and our core values. So people can go to our website before they even begin to say, well, what is that company? Do I want to work there? That sort of thing. They're researching us, and they can say, okay, I see that they clearly are a business of faith. And so they might decide then not to apply. I'm not sure. But once they meet us, I think that they'll see that we're going to treat them as any other individual. In our reviews, in our performance reviews, that's not a topic of the conversation. It's all about what the task that we had for this last quarter or year, and what does that look like, and how well are we doing within that to meet those objectives? Do we have the skill sets that are necessary? Are we meeting those particular objectives? It's not, oh, have you met this last spiritual challenge that we put on you?
Right.
Now, hopefully, though, if we've loved on them well along the way, if we're living rightly ourselves, that they'll see something that might attract them to that way.
Yeah.
We're prayerful for that.
Sure.
And we ask, and clearly we're doing that openly through this podcast, for others in our group to hold us accountable to that. So that's where we have often talked about that, and we're never going to discriminate based on a person's faith or not. We know that there are people clearly of that 50 that are working with us that are of the spiritual continuum. They're on different phases of that, or maybe not even started it.
Yeah.
And that's okay. If they're okay to just go through the process with us, or just work towards, we're going to treat them well, see them as image bearers of God, and we're going to love them for who they are, because that's what the Lord's called us to do.
Yeah.
That's good.
I love that. That's so good. Great answer. As you've grown the company and have really just instilled this caring culture in the company, you have that the caring team, you have the meetings every Tuesday. You're seeing fruit from it. You're seeing the results from it. What are some of your favorite stories? I know you gave the flower story, and then what's kind of grown from the business meetings. But are there any others of just like, wow, when you see this is the results of just creating a deliberative culture?
So one that just comes to mind is, we probably one of the very first things we did was we just did something very simple. We got this book called The Story by Max Lucado, right? And we have that in our lobby, and we just give those away to anybody that wants to pick one up and take it out of the door, right? Nobody says, hey, here's your gift for coming through the door. It's just out. It's available. It says, please take this if you want it. And we've probably been doing that for over 10 years.
Yeah.
And we've probably
Thousands of books.
At least 2,000 to 3,000 of those books have gone out.
Yeah, it's great.
And so one of the greatest stories is just hearing from, it's happened a few times, people coming back and just saying, hey, I had a realtor friend of mine that had taken one of those books, and he comes back 6 months later and he says, I just got to thank y'all for that book. He said, I took that book and I gave it to my mother, who was not a believer. And I had tried for years to get her to go to church, to talk to her about faith, and just have gotten nowhere. But I gave her that book, and she read it, and she came to know Jesus Christ.
Wow.
And it has changed our entire family. And so, and who knows the count? I mean, there's thousands of those books out there that we'll never know the impact.
The people that read it don't know where it came from, right? It
That's
may be
right.
third or fourth hand before it hits an impact. But that's fantastic.
And that's just a simple something. That's not us saying, hey, let me talk to you about Jesus when you walk in the door.
Right.
It's just a simple book sitting on a shelf saying, if you want one, take one.
We've got expanded a little bit. We have another book that's offered called Praying Circles Around Your Children. And it's from the Mark Batterson, I think.
Patterson,
yes.
yeah.
So he has a Praying Circles series, but he also did this one about specifically praying for your children. And it's a great little book that is easy for a couple or for a single parent to pray over their children with, or their grandchildren, adult or infant or young children. It just doesn't matter. So it is, and it inspires. So my wife and I, for instance, took that same book did our own devotional that we do each morning, and we started through it, and just reading a page and a half gives you enough content to really begin to think and contemplate about praying for your children and for their lives and for what's going on in your family. And so that's another one of those books that we've given out. And those, again, are going like by the hundreds and hundreds we've given out of those.
Wow.
These publishers really love us. We just keep ordering and ordering and ordering. And
good.
what we've learned about that, too, is you can't have one out on there, because people don't want to take the one.
Right.
It's not like the last cookie. They may grab that, but they're not going to grab the last book.
Yeah, because they're nice. They're hardbound books, right? So
Wow.
it's not just a little flimsy thing. So it's a nice gift for somebody to take. And so we have them in different sections. So there might be 20 of them out in the lobby, but purposely, not just so that they feel comfortable. Oh, I can take one. It's not going to really hurt so much.
Yeah.
So that's been a fun ride. Just that little story there too.
That's amazing. And for that business owner who's wondering, where do you start? I mean, that's a good spot right there. I mean, just start somewhere.
It's simple.
Yeah, exactly.
Very simple, and it's not offensive. And then the other one is, now sometimes, however, if you're talking to a client and clearly they maybe even have a family struggle or something like that, or they might sow some spiritualness to them, we might suggest and grab that to them and hand that to them.
Yeah.
But mostly people are just grabbing them and taking off with them. And that's true, and regardless of what location, hasn't really stopped the flow of that book out the doors.
That's so good.
We have a chapel in our office lobby. So it's a separate room, but it's right there in the lobby. And it's got a label on it and it says, Our Father's Office. Can you believe that? And so in that, though, it's just a prayer room. It doesn't have pews and stained glass, right? But it does have, we did commission a painting to be done by a local artist, and it depicts a scene that we talk about out of Joshua 4. And then we also, and that's about the Israelites crossing across the Jordan, and the river's divided, and the Lord says to each person, grab a stone and stack it up. So what do these stones mean? And they are the promises that the Lord has kept, coming into the promised land. Build this memorial, not to worship the memorial, but just as a reminder of what the Lord has done. And so we've made it interactive, and we have these little stones that we have there, and many of them, they're all blank except for the ones that have been written on. So we invite people in to write with a marker on their stones and give us a promise that the Lord has kept in your life. And sometimes people are not readily like, well, let's talk about your life. You have children, you have grandchildren. Have you had health issues you've overcome? Just whatever they might be. Or you got a new home that you've just moved into. What a great gift that is. And so we just talk about those things, and they are instantly able to begin to start to write. And so it could be one word, it could be several words, whatever that little rock can hold. And so now we're beginning to get quite a collection of rocks, and we have a memorial to all the promises that the Lord has kept.
Wow.
And we're going to build a big stone wall at one point. This is my vision. And we're going to have it, and people are going to go, because it's going to be too much for people to ignore.
Yeah.
And they're going to go, what do those stones mean? And they're going to have all the writings, all these people with all the promises that the Lord has kept.
That's good.
And it's fun.
Wow.
It's
Chills.
really fun.
That's incredible. And that's such a great testament to God and his faithfulness right there. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and we that prayer room is used from time to time, because, I do personal injury work, and there's some real tragic circumstances, unfortunately, with real trauma in people's lives. And as we're doing that and meeting with, one of our conference rooms that I typically am meeting with the client in is right beside that room, that prayer room. And I'll invite them out, and we'll walk into that room. Let me show you this. And it just really is steady, calming influence on these people's lives. And we stand there, and now I'm having already been working through their particular case with them, or I have just heard what their circumstances are. I've gotten to know something about them.
Sure.
And so I know what struggles they might be going through. So we can stand there and we can bow our heads and pray in that space. And that has been a real positive, uplifting, encouraging moment where there's people with real tears just streaming down their face and just feeling like you can really uplift, encourage, and support those individuals that are going through this. Mm-hmm. So you can offer the legal service, but are you offering the emotional support and spiritual encouragement also along the way? And we feel like that's part of our mission, is to do that. And that's how we are integrating it all into whatever we do.
I love that. That's so good. What's a piece of advice you wish you had been given 10 years earlier?
Just do it.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah,
just do it. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Be courageous. Step out in the little things like we described earlier. Just a little step and build your spiritual muscle up.
Yeah, just start. You already mentioned a couple books, but is there another resource like a book that you'd recommend?
Probably, probably may have talked about this with His Way at Work, but The Business Card by Peter Freisel is just impactful, because that is him taking a leap of faith.
That's right.
Right.
That should just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Mm-hmm. That's right. Don't be afraid. And that story describes a lot of fear that people have.
Sure.
And we just got to overcome the fear.
Yeah.
And then you get to experience the joy.
That's right.
That doesn't mean there's not missteps along the way. Sure. And there won't be struggles.
That's messy, right. We're still human.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
There will be people that will question, why are you doing that? Yeah. I don't believe in that, and I'm not going to do business with you. Those stories exist too.
Sure.
They're far and few between.
Yeah. We just don't cover those here.
Right.
Yeah.
So this has been incredible. I really appreciate both of you just spending the time with us and just being so open and honest about your journey. I'm inspired. I'm ready to go, knock down a wall. I'm so excited. But before we leave, one last question. What's that big takeaway for the person who may have been listening to this, the CEO, the business leader? What would you say to them is the big thought that you want them to leave with, Kevin?
Just right off the top of my head, I think it goes back to your earlier question: is this legal to do? Can I actually do this? And the answer is yes. Yeah. And that I think is for a person ready to do this and ready to step out in faith. I think in the back of their mind, from a pure business standpoint, is, can I get in trouble for this? So,
yeah. And a caveat to that, just for those listening, absolutely yes, you can. You don't act like a fool.
That's right.
Right. There are guidelines. There are things you need to kind of boundaries you stay within. Yeah. But as long as you do it with wisdom and you do it with discernment, there are huge amounts of freedom and rights to do it. Just don't be an idiot and screw it up for the rest of us. Right.
That's right. That's right.
I would add too that if you're interested in things like culture in your firm, and if you have a heart for the Lord, that there's really no other way to do it. You need to step out. Whether you do it through the way that we've talked about with His Way at Work or with the C12, you still got to step out and obey what the Lord's called us to do. Also, if you're interested in reducing turnover, if that's an issue of yours and you'd like to do that, how do you attract and keep great people? Then you have a great culture. And you need to start down this path. So those are some of the takeaways that we would offer.
Goes back to, if God's the owner, then I got to do something.
That's right.
Can't just sit back and accept the truth and not take action on it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good.
Well, gentlemen, this has been an incredible episode. Thank you so much for your time and for sitting down and talking with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Will.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Eternal ROI. If you like what you heard, we would love for you to take a moment and leave us a review and share an episode with somebody you know. If you are inspired to begin bringing the power of God's love into your workplace, take a moment and check out our free assessment at hwaw.com. It'll only take you a few moments. It'll give you a snapshot of what your company looks like and maybe some ways to move forward. Just click on the link in the show notes, and we'll see you next time.